Hi, welcome to Green Seniors. This is the second in a series of introductory videos aimed at seniors who are curious about cannabis and wondering if it might improve their lives. My name is Arvin Johnston, and I'm doing these videos because it is my sincere belief that seniors, more than any other age group, can benefit from cannabis. But before we get started, I have to tell you that I am not a doctor, and the information presented here is not intended as medical advice. I'm also not a lawyer, and I can't defend you if you get busted in a state that still considers possession a criminal act. I don't agree with this law, but I would never suggest that you break it. You know, one of the things I hear when I talk to people about cannabis or listen to politicians talk about cannabis is that there isn't enough science or research available to determine if cannabis is safe or not. I want to take a look at that claim, but there's just not enough research. And then I want to take a look at the safety of cannabis when compared with other medications and with some strictly recreational products. So here I am at PubMed, which is an online repository for peer-reviewed scientific papers. You can see here it says it has more than 30 million citations. So why don't we just take a look here. I'm just going to type in cannabis. And let's see what we have here. We have 22,222 results, dating back all the way to 1840. So that means that since 1840, there's been over 22,000 scientific papers written about cannabis. Now let's try marijuana also, because that's what it was known as for the last 80 years. Oh, look at that. We have 33,000 results for marijuana. What that means is that there is more than 33,000 papers, research papers, scientific journal papers written about marijuana. So let's try this with a few other more common drugs. Let's try Tylenol. There you go. There's 28,000 of them. But Tylenol also kills more than 400 people each year. Let's look at Ativan, one of the more prescribed tranquilizers, benzodiazepines, 4,658 results. How about Xanax, another benzodiazepine, just under 2,700 results. How about oxycodone, a frequently prescribed opiate, just about 4,000 results. And let's try Adderall. And here's what we get, 224 results for Adderall. And there's no outcry. This is speed. This is stuff we give kids. No outcry about 224 results. And again, marijuana with 33,000 results? No, we don't have near enough data. So the idea that there is no research into cannabis is bullshit. I'm not making this up. Go to Google and type in PubMed and search for yourself. And again, I want to remind you that not one single person has ever died from a cannabis overdose. Not one. Now, what about safety? Okay, well, what do we mean when we say safe when we talk about medicine? We certainly don't mean harmless. Just listen to any drug ad on television. The announcer spends at least half the time telling potential patients about the possible side effects associated with using the drug when it is taken as prescribed, not when it's abused. So when it comes to safety in cannabis, I think we need to look at the potential risks and see if they are comparable to the risks associated with conventional medications. Now, when government bodies like the FDA want to determine the safety of a drug, they look at different things that make up the drug's safety profile. They look at its dependence liability, the drug's LD50 or risk of lethal overdose in half, and I'll explain that in a minute, and the adverse side effects of the drug. So, first off, the dependence liability is the chance that someone will, at some point in the future, maybe become dependent on a substance. As this chart shows, cannabis comes in with about the same dependence liability as caffeine, but about half as much as alcohol and a third of tobacco, two substances that have absolutely no medical benefits. And it's about a third as high as opiates. So by the dependence liability standard, we are well within the levels acceptable to society for both medical and completely non-therapeutic recreational substances. Now let's look at the overdose potential, or the LD50. LD50 means lethal dose in half. What it's asking is at what dosage will 50% of the subjects that take that dose die? It sounds weird, but they do have this number because of how they test drugs. They give larger and larger doses of the compounds to lab animals, mice usually, until half of them die. And then they extrapolate that out to get a number that relates to people. Then they look at the effective dose in relation to the lethal dose. If you get a small number, you have a very narrow margin of safety and a higher overdose potential. With cannabis, this one's easy. Regardless of how much cannabinoids they gave the lab animals, they could not cause a lethal overdose. This is largely due to the fact that cannabinoid receptors aren't located in the brain stem and can't shut down our breathing or our hearts like opiates and alcohol. But as we look at the list, some things kind of stand out here. Almost all of the recreational drugs are safer than alcohol from a dying perspective, at least. Cocaine is safer than alcohol, for God's sakes. And then there's side effects. Opioids, as already mentioned, cause death by overdose, usually accidental, and they can cause suicidal thoughts, sleepiness, nausea, vomiting, constipation, dizziness, and itching. Taking too much acetaminophen, that's Tylenol, can cause liver damage, and more than 400 people die each year because of it. I'm just going to mention here that acetaminophen is the most common drug ingredient in the US, being part of 600 prescription and over-the-counter formulations. So you may already be headed for an acetaminophen overdose and not know it. NSAIDs like ibuprofen damage your kidneys, they can cause ulcers, and they've been associated with heart attacks and strokes, and yeah, death. What about benzodiazepines like Ativan and Xanax? 30% of prescription overdoses are from benzos. They cause amnesia and memory impairment, loss of balance and dizziness. They can be quickly habit-forming and are really difficult to get off of. These are all really common drugs that are prescribed or bought over the counter every day, yet they all have the potential to kill you. Cannabis, on the other hand, and I know I keep saying this, but it is really important, cannabis has never killed anyone. The most common side effects are dizziness, drowsiness, dry mouth, red eyes, and other generally harmless adverse effects. The dizziness isn't so good for seniors because falls are a serious problem, but this can be dealt with by proper dosing and cannabinoid balancing. So let's pull what we've got together here. From 3 of the standards that pharmaceuticals are required to meet, the dependence liability, the risk of lethal overdose, and the side effects, cannabis isn't just competitive, it easily wins each one when compared to other pharmaceuticals or recreational products. There's just one other little thing I'd like to bring up while we're dealing with safety, efficacy, and usefulness, and that's a number. It's a US patent number to be specific. The number is 630-507. That is the US patent number issued to the US government for cannabis. The patent in part reads, "Cannabinoids have been found to have antioxidant properties. This newfound property makes cannabinoids useful in the treatment and prevention of a wide variety of oxidation-associated diseases, such as age-related inflammatory and autoimmune diseases. The cannabinoids are found to have particular application as neuroprotectants, for example in limiting neurological damage following stroke and trauma, or in the treatment of neurodegenerative diseases such as Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, and HIV dementia." Cannabis is currently a Schedule I controlled substance, indicating that it has no medical value. Yet the US government holds a patent on cannabis medical value. What's going on here? What's going on here is a story for another day, but it does look a bit suspicious. Criminalizing and incarcerating tens of thousands of people for a product you have a patent on? You know, I'm not trying to say that cannabis is completely innocuous or harmless, especially for seniors. What I am saying is that we should compare apples to apples. There is more than enough science and research showing that cannabis is at least as safe, if not safer, than the meds you're currently taking. And speaking of the meds that you are currently taking, as a group, we seniors make up about 13% of the population, but account for 35% of prescription medication usage and 30% of over-the-counter medications. In the next video, I'm going to look at how seniors can reduce the number of drugs they take and help ease their ailments by using cannabis. Thanks for watching.